Mike McCarthy yesterday at his introductory press conference, and joining us now to get into it is our great friend, the great insider, Ray Fittipaldo from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, brought to you by AV-rated super lawyers LG, KG, Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly, and George. Ray, your thoughts on Mike McCarthy's opening salvo?
Yeah, listen, it obviously means a lot to him. I was there in person, and it was hard not to feel that emotion in that room, not only with Mike, but, Omar too, because Omar goes way back with him. I don't know if you guys watched that or just listened to it, but if you watched that, Omar was like his offensive assistant for that 1 year. I think the year was 2000. So it's like a, coming full circle moment, I think, for both of those guys. And I think Steelers fans, they should be excited, man. I think Omar's going to be motivated. Mike's going to be motivated. And, I'm very interested to see where this goes and how quickly it goes.
Ray, what's one thing that he said that really stuck out to you, whether it was the X's and O's talk or, obviously coming back as a head coach, bringing Lombardi back potentially? What was one thing that you're like, oh, man, that's different. That sounds good and it's different?
Yeah, well, one thing I did notice right away, because I was, just doing some research on him over the weekend, and I was thinking, okay, are you going to stick with the 3-4, or are you going to go to the 4-3? Because he had some success with the 4-3 when Dan Quinn was his DC in Dallas. And pretty much right off the bat, he got it out of the way. He's like, yeah, we're sticking with the 3-4. And it felt like, the Rooneys had a big say in that. It just kind of feels like, okay, this is our system. We've been running it for 30 plus years. Are you good with staying with it? And Mike was like, yeah, we're good with staying with it. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to run it back with every single defensive player who was on that roster,
right.
But it kind of feels like, okay, TJ is probably going to be back. Maybe Cam's back. It doesn't feel like we're going to see a lot of change on that side of the ball, which I think, guys, makes this DC hire really, really important. I mean, I think this is probably his most important hire, because if you look at the stats, and I mean, you guys watched him play like I did, it was up and down all season. There was no consistency, and there was a lot of bad, some good at the end of the season, but a lot of bad too. And whoever he hires, I think he's got a big mountain to climb, getting that defense back to where they need it to be.
Well, a two-parter here. Well, it's all fresh in my mind. Number one, do you think that the defense performed as poorly as it did last season because the talent was misidentified, or do you think it was more of a coaching issue? And then number two, I know you said that you think the Rooneys had a lot to do with the 3-4, and maybe they did. My big takeaway was he said he liked that defense because it was the toughest to prepare for, and that's why they switched to it when they wound up winning the Super Bowl against the Steelers in 2010. So I think if given his preference, he might have picked the 3-4 too.
Yeah, maybe his decision to go to the 4-3 in Dallas was just based on the personnel that they had, right? So I mean that very well could have been as well. So this whole thing with Mike coming on board here and how it's going to look on defense really intrigues me. I think just watching him and listening to him talk about offense yesterday, I'm like, okay, he's going to be able to find a way to score points with whoever is quarterback. I kind of feel like he's that guy. He's going to get the most out of the talent that he has. Defensively, for me, that's the huge question mark right now. And I don't know which direction it's going to go. And, to answer your question in a roundabout way, just like what Mike harped on in the summer, historic defense. We got Jalen Ramsey. It never came to pass. And we knew by September 20th or 27th that it wasn't going to work. And to Mike's credit, he changed some things. He put Jalen at safety, but it wasn't the defense he thought it was going to be. And to me, that's what sticks with me. So they ended up being league average pretty much. And like I said, they got to be much better than that.
Ray, your thoughts on a potential Aaron Rodgers return, as Mike McCarthy was asked and alluded to, why wouldn't you want an Aaron Rodgers back?
Yeah. So he's already spoken with Aaron. he didn't really give us a lot of insights into how that conversation went. Just kind of like, yeah, we're going to give him his space, and at least we know that Mike wants him back, and now it's kind of like the waiting game too. But I don't think the Steelers are going to wait, past free agency this year. If Aaron wants to test free agency, I think it's, the Steelers probably have to move on. I think they kind of want to know in February what's going on, early March at the latest. And then if they can go to the combine knowing what the situation is, I think they can plan for the offseason. But it seems like a reunion's in the works. I mean, Aaron had a good season. He loves the guys in that locker room. Unless there's something going on where he just wants to end it, and maybe he does. Maybe he just wants to go out on a high note. Then maybe he wouldn't come back. But it seems like a reunion is almost inevitable at this point.
I want you to put on your Aaron Rodgers predictor cap, and we've all gone down this road, and it's a dangerous road to go down. But Aaron strikes me as a guy who is a football romantic, the way he talked about this organization when he got here, the way that he has had reverence talking about former greats throughout some of these press conferences this year. Right. I feel like now that McCarthy's coming back in a place that I think Rodgers grew to love, I think I'd be surprised if he didn't want to come back. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think it could be a good situation for Will Howard too. Listen, if Aaron doesn't come back, Will Howard cannot be the starter with no NFL experience. So just as sitting here thinking about it, like, who's the best player for Will Howard to learn from? And we know in that building they really like him. The best person for him to learn from would be Aaron Rodgers for a year. And then you turn it over to Will Howard. You draft a quarterback in 2027. And then you go from there. So I think, this has it could work out for the Steelers. I don't know if it'd be, any better than 9-8 or 10-7. Maybe you get into the playoffs. Maybe Mike makes a difference there, but it certainly seems like it could be a great situation for Will Howard to step into. He's already learned from him, but now you learn the McCarthy system, learn the offense from the guy who was executing at the best, 10, 15 years ago.
Ray, did you hear that Chris Scholla bombed his interview with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Guys, I never heard that. And, I'm not saying it was a wrong, report, but I did not hear that. Did you guys see the Rams president, Kevin Demoff?
I did.
Responded to Pony's tweet, and he was kind of like, okay, like, this system we have here isn't working. You're trying to hire a head coach based on a Zoom interview. I mean, whatever happened to like in-person interaction? I mean,
don't get me started. I think you're dead ass right, and he's dead ass right about that. Like, this idea, like, even now I'm going to go off on just a mini tangent real quick. Just because you can do in-person learning at schools, like my daughter did it yesterday, I can see some value in it. You ain't getting the same out of that you get out of going to actual school and sitting in your classroom for 45 minutes, and then the bell rings and you go to the next one. Yeah, that is actually a reason why I was a little bit bummed out that Shula didn't come in for an in-person interview. Like, when I was hired here, it was a weird time. Like, we had just sort of come out of COVID. My first meeting with Craig was Zoom. And I was like, I think I sucked ass. And then I got to come in here and talk to everyone. I was like, okay, I think I came off a little bit better. I think it's tough to sell yourself, not to mention they're preparing for an NFC championship game. Sorry for
correct me if I'm wrong. The Browns are the only team that waited and got Shieldhouse in person. And, like, what's going on with this Kubiak thing? Like, the Bills can't interview him the Bills couldn't interview him because it was a second interview, not a first. It was like their rules are so odd.
They're stupid. One last thing on this, because it's, again, fresh in my mind. I'm starting to think Shieldhouse wasn't all that great of a candidate for all that many teams. Like, that it's too early for him to be a head coach. Yeah. And that was universally thought of across the board, because the only team that's given him the time of day, seemingly, is the Browns. And dear sweet God, we know they don't know what they're doing. Ray's joining us here on the hotline presented by Sullivan Super Service, Pittsburgh's trusted plumbing and HVAC provider for over 50 years. I've taken up enough oxygen, Dorin, if you have a question for him.
I just asked the one about Shula.
Okay, very good. Ray, was there anything from the press conference that made you go, I don't like that direction, or anything that caught you off guard that was said by any of the three people sitting up there?
No, honestly, I think they hit all the right notes. They had the big homecoming on the scoreboard lit up for Mike. And, this was a way for the Steelers to introduce their new head coach. And there was a lot of backlash in the days leading up to the hire. But I think a lot of that, guys, really, I don't want to say it's gone now, but I think people see how much he cares about the city and the Steelers. I think he's going to be given a clean slate. Obviously, he's got to win. I mean, they can't get off to like an 0-4 start next year, but I think this is a clean slate now. People will start getting excited about the draft and the offseason and all this, wringing of the hands about how they hired a guy, who they hired. I think that's pretty much in the rearview mirror.
Ray, last thing for you. Anything you're hearing on coordinators?
No, just some guys coming in, apparently. And it's kind of like head coaches now. You do have to satisfy the Rooney Rule. So this isn't going to be like, he might know who he wants, but we're not going to know, I think, for a couple of days because they have to go through this process. But the one thing I do know is he's got a big coaching tree, and I think anyone who he hires is going to have great experience. He mentioned that was very important. He wants guys with expertise and experience in those positions, young guys to sort of do the grind. And I think his coaching staff is going to be really good because of that.
Yeah, he nailed that portion of the press conference. Nailed it. Ray, you're a gentleman and a scholar, and we appreciate you and your time.
All right, guys. Talk to you next week.
Thanks, Ray.
See you, buddy.